It starts with, and I completely agree. It starts with family and what the ultimate objective is when it comes to family overall.
You're right.
Like, and and that's if we're talking about family and immediate family, or we're talking as a community, because like it's like when Chip and Bugsy Malone beefed. For me, that was like Chip basically had like a moment where he was able to not resurrect his career, but it's a jump start where he's now been able to find his preferred creative direction, and I think he's in one of the best spaces he's ever been in throughout his whole career, because he's just making the music that he wants, and it's working. And there's an audience that have now a healthy palate for grime music, that he can make the music he wants without having to dilute it to appease the gatekeepers. But by the same token, Bugsy Malone has been able to put the presence of the diaspora as they exist in Manchester on the map. And he had initially had deals with like North Face, but then ended up having his own brand in it. And for me, that's a win-win.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think he's a brilliant example of that. You get what I'm showing you? And when you see him, he's been consistent in terms of the spaces that he's occupied before his success, and the spaces, and when I say spaces occupied, I'm talking about the people around him that have been able to benefit from what he's been doing. You get what I'm showing you? So again, we've spoke a lot about the problems, but in short, I just want to discuss some of the solutions. And I'm going to say this, I'm going to make an appeal here. Anybody this message resonates with, reach out to us on socials, and let's connect and start this movement, because we are going to be doing more things. Then there's going to be concerted. I mean, this appeal is come a bit prematurely, because I wasn't planning to do it now, but there is definitely something we're going to be starting, and we're going to be connecting with the leaders of our community. If you consider yourself a leader, reach out to us and let's start connecting and doing some stuff. But in discussing some of the solutions, Dane, what do you feel, where can we start?
I think that it's like you said, there has to be a sense of community and people understanding what the overall goal is. You need to kind of get rid of these ideas of cliquiness and individualism that I think have come from assimilation. I think when it comes to the culture, we all have to understand that it's like, it's not just about your brethren that raps or your brethren that produces or does or makes beats. It's about overall, anywhere we can see an aspect of this culture getting pushed is going to benefit us in one way or another. Even down to when people see people that represent them in positive spaces, that can have a positive effect. And we all have to work to encourage that overall, and get rid of the egos. And I think that's one of the solutions as well. I mean, I work in comedy and like TV entertainment, which I would say was that's like we're still like 20 years behind music. Still got a lot of work to do in that respect. But I think it's also important that we do not buy into a assimilated and mainstream idea of what we think our community is supposed to be, just because it pays, or just because it's the thing that's getting pushed. If you don't represent that, or you don't think it represents you, don't feel the need to conform to that. We don't all have to, like, every single video, just using the music as an example, don't have to open with a brother with a Canada Goose on in the summer and a Lamborghini Urus. A Lamborghini Urus, and you're smoking a vape and all those things open at the same, like that, because that's not everybody's life. So let's let that art reflect that, and and I think also just be. I mean, a lot of it happens because the world seems a lot more smaller now because of social media. But I just think that collaboration and unity, that's the key, really. And the more of that people can do and combine our resources, like you said, many hands make light work, and I think that's something we have to definitely embrace. And but I think it's important for elders to not just turn up your nose at stuff you don't necessarily understand. Do the due diligence, understand the new world and the new aspects of subculture that younger people are creating. And even if you don't like it, find out why it's being liked.
I would say, right, one word that sticks out to me, and that's really been, it's been really helpful in my development, and that is maturity. Attaining to maturity, like having a conceited effort in moving towards maturity. And what I found is that it's taken away the ego. This is just from a personal point of view. It's taken away my ego. So even now I can laugh at myself in ways in which I couldn't do before. When I first moved to London from Birmingham, a lot of my friends in London will say he was rough, very rough around the edges. I'm glad to know for myself that I've refined a lot since being in London. It's been a journey anyway. But I say all that to say maturity is very important, and what that would do is foster spaces in which, if we're all as men trying to mature, it will give the adolescents, the more adolescents, like proper adolescents, members of our community, space to grow into.
Yeah.
It will also mean that we are trying to then foster a space in which we're looking after our community more.
Yeah.
So even if you see one of the younger youths doing something on the road that is, you get me, like it's against the code. You said something earlier about honor.
Yeah.
There's honor. There should be honor amongst men. You get me?
That has to be, yeah.
We should, as men, be holding ourselves accountable anytime we violate that code of honor. You get what I mean? Like a lot of that doesn't happen.
It doesn't. We're very individualist, and you know, I mean, it's part of a much larger conversation. But in this world, sometimes like just because you can get away with something doesn't mean you should.
Right.
And that's the thing.
Yeah.
I feel like there's certain elements of like self-discipline and delayed gratification. And it's not. It's a long road, but
it's not easy.
It's not easy.
It's not easy. You know, but I'm telling you, it's enjoyable if you key into it and stop thinking about the short-term gains and look for the long-term wins. You get? I'm sure.
More to life than just busting a nut, bro.
It's not.
Because once you bust a nut, you're just there.
That's it.
You're just there.
That short term. I'm telling you, there's
me.
some wins that are better than, and this is gonna sound mad, innit? But
yeah,
there's some wins that are much better than busting a nut.
That's what I'm saying to you. But we need to understand that.
No, but I needed to reframe what you're saying so people to understand that. Not to disagree, I'm agreeing with you, but I'm saying it in a different way.
No, there is more to life than that.
Need to understand that you will have certain things happen in your life that you'd be like, rah, there is no girl that I bust a nut with in whatever how you want to refer to it as, and it was better than this moment here. Yeah, I'm showing you, and these things have got nothing to do with sex. So the word I'm going to use really is maturity. Man, then we need to find spaces to just mature. That's for me, it was the beginning building block. It was the first rung of the ladder. It was the first step on the staircase that I'm now climbing.
Yep.
Like maturity and consistently keeping that in mind. Man, if you want to be respected by your women, if you want to be respected by your counterparts, you have to mature. Yep. It's just, and that's where it starts. If you're not, you get me? If you're not mature, no one ain't gonna respect you. And in this world, men don't get much grace. Black men even less. So man, please, you get me? Cause right now, we're in a space in which we need to do that. And I would even liken it to this, because I ask you this question, right? Is it fair to say that every black country and nation in this world has been pushed around by Western, or even
it is completely fair and accurate to say.
So I think that's in direct correlation to the way that we represent ourselves as individuals.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and this is the thing, we have a much bigger problem. When we're not maturing as individuals, we don't contribute to a space into a community that is productive, and that community then becomes so separated that we don't represent our nations well, and then we just get pushed around, which leads me to the next subject. You like that transition there, bro? Yeah, man. Yeah. So I'm going to say this. We've spoken about Ibrahim Traoré, right? And this is a whole geopolitical conversation, right? Because what's been jarring me of late, and I don't know whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, but I'll say this, right? You have America at war right now with Israel, China, Iran. Those are
depends because there's America has military bases everywhere, and if you got to have a military base somewhere, probably some element of conflict there as well, isn't it? So,
but this is it. But from a geopolitical point of view of just like what we can see, the optics, you've got these wars going on. You've got Iran, Israel, Palestine. Because make no mistake, America are controlling what's going on in Israel.
Absolutely.
You get what I mean? And Benjamin Netanyahu just wants to bun down everything. And if it weren't, I gotta give the US credit. If it weren't for them, they probably would have just went and bun down everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there is that. Then you've got this trade war and the tariffs and all that kind of thing that's going on with China. The problem I have with all of this is, I like to see what's going on because I feel like it's creating a semblance of balance within the world. It's not allowing any one power to run off with all the power. It's giving us as black people a space in which we can come together, unite, and actually think about how we're going to build from within. while everybody else is just doing their madness. And it doesn't matter how much I put that message out there. This is a fact. This is happening. But the problem I'm finding is this, right? With all these conversations, and I listen to a lot of right-wing political commentators, right, in the US in particular, and they'll speak about all these tariffs and all these trade wars and all these things, and rarely do they mention anything happening in Africa, yeah? And what bothers me about that is, and then when they do, they'll say things like, oh yeah, it's the Muslims versus the Christians in Africa fighting each other. And, you know, as Christians, these are Christian political commentators. We need to support the Christians and stop the Muslims from beheading Christians and all these. And it's like, no, what's happening is your Western government is paying one side to invade land. Some European powers paying the other side to defend the land or whatever the case may be.
Or they're hiring mercenaries, where they do a lot of the time as well.
But that's what I'm saying. When I say paying people, I'm talking about the mercenaries as well. I'm showing you, because some of these mercenaries are from the continent.
And some of them, but they're not from the country in question.
Yes, yeah.
So that's what I'm saying, is that, like, obviously it's not like they're trying to support a conflict, ideologically supporting one group of people from the country. There's, in some cases, they're basically paying for mercenaries to cross the borders of certain places and to just create destabilization.
And in that destabilization, they're also getting paid, because the money that they're giving, they don't just give it to the mercenaries. They actually give it to the mercenaries to pay their own manufacturers to provide arms for the conflict.
So they get the money back,
They're getting paid for the benefit of destabilizing our countries. So in the same way that I said, you know, us as black men in the UK are getting pushed around, is the same way that our nations get pushed around, and we need to represent ourselves better and understand the correlation between the two. Now, what pisses me off is, again, these political commentators don't mention anything, or seldom mention anything about Africa, except to the extent that it's Muslims versus Christians, without realizing, and I know they are definitely more educated to realize that the reason why these things are happening is to clear the lands, to take the resources underneath the land and take advantage of it. I've not heard Trump. He's got so much things to say, and as much as I like this brother, and not for the reasons that everybody thinks typically, but again, he brings about a certain balance that we need. You get, I'm showing you, we need this interruption right now. We didn't need Kamala coming in with her foolishness, right?
It's so interesting the way and it's good that we make sure people understand that, because obviously people, when you say, I like Trump, they have an idea of what they think the reasons why. But it's like you're saying, no more distractions.
Yeah, man.
We're not like them. They're not your friends. The system ain't there to protect you. And as you can see now, he's reminding you lot, you're not one of us. Because you notice, there's no black people in this administration this time around. He's not even trying to hide it or pretend. And so it's, you know, obviously we have opposing points on this, but like you're saying, you're like, because Trump reminds everyone of the real settings.
Right. You get
me? The real settings.
Pull you fucking pants up and let's keep it moving, because now we can't afford to get complacent in this thing.
And there's been a lot of complacency. And like I said, you can actually argue effectively that Kamala would have been someone that prolonged the ongoing idea that we're part of the dream and she's a black woman. They don't care about us.
That's it. You get me? And the thing is, like, there's that saying, isn't it? If you sit in shit long enough, it will stop smelling.
Yeah.
And that's what was happening.
Yeah.
You know, the Labour do that, the Democrats do that. They create that space. No longer, we don't have the choice. We need to be forced to move into action. Human beings traditionally only move through pain, not through the aspiration of attaining to anything higher. So we need this. It's a shot in the arm.
No one trusts peacetime generals, innit?
Well, this is
respect.
You know what I'm saying. So I say that to say, Trump now, he doesn't really say much about Africa. You know, there's bare sanctions and tariffs that is implementing to over certain African nations and whatnot. But you don't hear anything in the news about what he said about any African nation, really. You know what I mean? He's got the most to say about everyone else, but doesn't say. And they always talk about, you know, is it Taiwan, Greenland in terms of resources, Ukraine. But no one ever says, without Africa, the world is dead. You get what I'm showing? Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
No one. You get me?
Even though it's the fact of the facts.
So I want to bring this round to let everybody know that if you want to continue enjoying your dirty Decembers in West Africa, if you want to continue going home to your family in any part of Africa, you have to know that we have a job to do in contributing to the security, and it might only be to the extent of our voices. You get what I'm showing you?
But we have a job to do.
We have a job to do. We have to understand and realize this collective responsibility. There's a war going on. We should brace for impact. And I'm going to give you some stats and just let you know exactly what's going on, because we're now in a time where, I said it to you before, I don't know if I said it on the pod though, but I don't know what it's like to have a Malcolm X, a Marcus Garvey. I think we are living in a space where one is being created and he needs protecting and he needs praying.
And I think going back to what you said about like geopolitics, the geopolitical shifts that are taking place in the West or in the Northern Hemisphere might sound like they're the be all and end all, but people need to remember it was during the first Great War is when they did their scramble for Africa.
Yeah.
And the Balfour Declaration.
Yeah.
So the madnesses that we're seeing now in Africa and in Palestine, these Europeans started patterning those things when they first were going to war with each other.
Before I move on to this summary, it's mad you say that, right? Because back in the day, when that scramble for Africa happened, they used, like, blatantly used guns, bombs, colonize it. Like, the way they did it was almost barbaric. Not almost, it was barbaric. But because we're now hip to the game, you get what I'm showing you, they can't implement the same tactics.
Yeah.
But I think, again, this level of complacency that we have been under for a while makes us not understand that they are trying new tactics.
Yeah, they are.
You get what I'm showing you? So we need to now be hip to the... But these tactics...
And not only are they trying new tactics, there's new tacticians in the game now. There's new tacticians. It's not just you know what I mean? The colonizers, not just white brothers anymore.
So let's start with Ibrahim Traoré and what's going on in the Sahel region, because he's leading this charge, really. And one of the latest things that's happened is the Sahel region, so that is currently Niger, Burkina Faso, and you guys have heard me speak about this before. Niger, Burkina Faso, and Mali have created their own bank. It's opened with a starting capital of $800 million. No media coverage, which is good in my opinion. Those who need to know, you get me? Mali, over the last couple of weeks, they've been making some massive strides. Bless you, brother.
Okay.
So they've removed foreign companies mining gold from within Mali over the last couple of weeks. They're basically making them pay their taxes, or not even just paying taxes, actually. They're levying a 30% tax on any revenue that is made from any of the gold coming from within their country.
Yep.
They seized 245 million from a Canadian gold mining company for unpaid taxes.
Yep.
The other major hand in Mali, which was I think it's an Australian company. They didn't even argue. They just settled up 160 million paid in unpaid taxes. And they basically said, yo, if you want to do business with us, you have to pay your taxes. You know what I mean?
Like you would when you was home.
Right.
Like you would be doing it. When you were at home, you'd be doing the same thing. So please show us the same respect you would show a white guy with the same resources in their country. Please. Thank you and goodbye. Yeah, man.
And then
it's not a hype though. It's you're in our country. Well, yeah, it's gonna cost you. Enjoy your stay. Pay your fees. No, it's not mad.
Yeah, and it's not mad. It's mad. But you know what? I'm laughing because this is change that for decades, for as long as I've been living as a Rastaman, especially.
Yeah.
Growing up as a Rastaman, we've been talking about this within our community for.
It's interesting to say that because remember, when people talk to Ibrahim Traoré about his ideological influences, Thomas Sankara, carrying the torch, not been that long. He might have been a child when Thomas Sankara was assassinated.
That's it. Yeah.
I said, you know what? Nah, I like that.
The groundwork was done because he's doing exactly what Sankara was doing, bro. And he's carrying on.
Bro, this happened in don't think this happened in the Caribbean as well, you know. Because with the new Jewel movement, which was a socialist revolution that happened in Grenada, and Maurice Bishop and his wife, they had a whole movement where they were trying to nationalize produce within Grenada as well, and have women's rights. And in the end, America invaded in 1982.
See it there?
Because you know they found oil in Jamaica as well, you know?
Yeah.
But in the 80s, it was bauxite. It was aluminium. Yeah.
I mean, they're still mining bauxite from Jamaica right now. You get me?
And, but when they discovered it, is when the violence began.
Yeah.
How convenient. But the same...
It's always been there, though, because if it wasn't sugar, if it wasn't rum, if it wasn't all the other things that they was exploiting slaves for from within Jamaica, it turned out to be now bauxite and oil and other bits and pieces. So it's like, and then tourism, I mean, again, all of the beach lands being brought up by the major conglomerates. Yeah. So then locals don't even have access.
Which is how that it can even be passed as a law. But you see, and that's what I'm saying with going back to what we said before about David Rodigan. You should be screaming your head off about that shit.
Yeah.
You should be going, every time you're on a sound, you should be booting off speakers, being like, this is a madness. It's a disgrace to the people that have provided me with the soundscape for my entire livelihood. You're depriving them of one of the most basic human rights in the country they come from, where you lot will, when you to do fucking family fortunes, what do you think of when you think of Jamaica? A bit of reefer, reggae music, right on the beach, mate. Everything's irie. But if you're a black Jamaican, less than 1% of you can have access to a beach. This is madness,
bro. It's ridiculous. It is actually mad, bro. Mad. Taking it to Kenya. Kenya's threat to withdraw from the World Health Organization. I don't know if you've seen that.
Nah.
It's only a threat so far, but yeah, I mean, I think this whole conversation is ramping up, especially with the Gates Foundation leaving Kenya, citing that the legal cases that they've been facing has drawn attention away from their philanthropic mission. I always struggle with that word. Their charity mission, basically.
No, but that's interesting because how can giving stuff away is through philanthropy? How can that be interrupted by legal issues?
Well, I mean, just to give some colour to what I'm saying, especially with one of the things that the Gates Foundation were doing, they were infiltrating the government in a way in which they were dictating what type of seeds Kenyan farmers could use. Some of these are genetically modified seeds.
Monsanto people, them, yeah?
You get what I'm showing you? Okay. Injecting the cows and...
Terminator seeds. So they can only reproduce once.
Right.
Which means rural farmers in Kenya can't have to go back to them to get more seeds.
Right.
Yes, I mean, Codex Alimentarius. You heard that before.
That word.
But no, I've only heard it so much, but it's about if you can control...
So I know.
I mean, that's why I heard the word. That's the new where you can, if you can control someone's seeds, then you can control our population. Yeah.
He who feeds you owns you.
Yeah.
You get what I'm showing you? If you can't... So basically what Dane is saying is that normal crops will produce their own seeds. So you can take those seeds and replant it and create more crops. These seeds that the Gates Foundation were trying to push are those that don't create any more seeds. So then you have to then go and buy seeds from the Gates Foundation again. They were also... I don't know if they started this, but they were also talking about injecting cows and livestock with whatever, I don't even know the chemicals that they're looking to. But long story short, they've left Kenya, so Kenya don't have that problem anymore, seemingly, and I hope that they don't have that problem again.
Yeah, me too.
Ghana has replaced South Africa as Africa's largest gold producer. A couple of doors down, Burkina Faso are working on a gold refining industry. So that's that there. Ghana's also prohibited foreigners from trading gold in their country starting May 1st. And then Burkina Faso, long list of things that they've been doing. Free education up to university age. They've launched an emergency ambulance service open to all citizens regardless of financial status. They've decreased parliamentary salaries by 30% and increased civil servants' wages by 50%. They've paid off all local debts. They've opened 2 tomato processing plants. What else do we have here?
They have an automotive program.
They have an automotive, and these I've probably missed some of the things, but I'm just giving you. This is a summary.
But I'm saying these are basic things that make you a developed country that he's done in how long?
A couple of years now.
It's a couple of years, bro.
Yeah. Increased GDP from 19 billion to 22 billion. Again, looking to build a gold refinery. Ban French military operations in Burkina Faso. Ban French troops and media from Burkina Faso. So a reason why I bring all of these to your attention, right, is because meanwhile, China, US are having this tariff war at the minute. Yeah, no one's mentioning Africa, but we all know without Africa they can't. They don't exist, right? Ibrahim Traoré just survived his 19th assassination attempt. So, while they're not saying anything, they're doing things.
Oh, yeah.
You get what I'm showing you?
Yeah,
They are still trying to underhandedly or insidiously interrupt this leadership as to take over and get back to the status quo, where France can get back in and take over and basically have all dibs on the resources. Brace for impact. This, what's happening, there's gonna be, they're gonna step it up, obviously. They'll step it up.
But they've already sent mercenary troops. Islamic fundamentalist mercenaries have appeared in Burkina Faso attacking villages and claim that they are going to be marching on into Ouagadougou.
Yeah.
And I'll be vexed.
Ouagadougou, can you...
It's the capital city of Burkina Faso. The French and Americans have paid mercenaries to destabilize Burkina Faso for trying to become an independent and prosperous nation, and showing themselves to be the evil colonialist piece of shit parasites that they are.
Understand. I just want to say this clearly. They are paying mercenaries to infiltrate Burkina Faso, killing people in local villages because the government is trying to become independent.
And giving people free education and healthcare.
Like, this is what's happening to our people. And in the same way in which they're pushing people around on the continent is the same way that we get pushed around outside of the continent. So I'm going to say this again. Anyone who's serious about connecting and making movements, reach out to us. Because right now, this is the time we all need to brace for impact. There's a war going on outside. You get what I'm showing you? And outside, for other people, outside of our community or culture, it's outside for them. For us, it's inside. You get what I'm showing you? And we all have a responsibility, again, even if it means to the extent of just using our voices. Others may have more to do. You get what I'm saying? But it's happening. Like 19 attempts, bro. They're not gonna stop. You get me? They are not trying to take their hands off Africa. You get me?
No.
And
because as you said twice, without it, you're dead. You're dead. And however you want to paint it otherwise, and whatever complicated capital asset pricing models you have, and whatever complicated ideas of capitalism you don't think you have, you saw it yourself. For all of their prestige and their bells and whistles, all it took for was one man to be like, we're going to change the tariffs. And 7 trillion was wiped off the stock market. That is how flimsy the sandcastle that they've built their whole civilization on is. Because what could 7 trillion have done to the impoverished people of the West? They don't care about them. But they know for a fact, without Africa, they're done. And as for something as just because a man in his own country wants his country to work how they want it to work, this is a problem for these people.
You can't use the Islamic terrorism excuse there. You can't use I don't know what
oppressing the people, or oppressing women, like LGBT, all the other things.
Although
all the things. All the
he
things.
did ban
Yeah,
same-sex marriages, but
but they do that in America.
yeah,
So it can't be the base. Oh, and France. So it can't be the basis
yeah,
for what you're doing. You lot are thieves and parasites, and it can't be hidden anymore.
right.
But there's some people that's not having that.
So I'm going to say that louder. The Western world are thieving and pillaging of Africa, and they don't want to give it any news coverage. They don't want to tell you the truth. You get what I'm showing you? So that's what Dane's saying.
Yeah.
You're parasites, and without Africa, they're dead. But you know what's funny is the role that Russia and China are playing in this, because maybe even more insidiously, I like Putin. No, and I genuinely like Putin. You get me? Like, I make no bones about that, because I feel like from a point of view of, again, creating balance, I know that there's a lot of things that he's done, and I'm not saying he's a perfect leader, but then at the same time, I've not seen him colonize anywhere outside of his own personal interests. So when people want to talk about Ukraine, if you want to really have that conversation, he said, like, Rod, don't come any further east then. Do not let Ukraine into NATO. He's actually tried to join NATO. You get what I mean? And was refused. So this is probably why him and Trump get on. Anyway, I say that to say this. For me, as well as providing balance in this whole this shadow geopolitical war, he also is supporting certain African nations as well, which at the minute I feel like they need militarily.
Yeah.
You get what I'm showing you? Because otherwise America probably would just go in there and with them, well, and I say America, they would pay the mercenaries quite healthily to just go in and clear whatever lands and take whatever they want, overthrow any government that they want.
I'm sure they would start their bombing campaigns and stuff as well.
But then if you do that, you interrupt Russia's interests and whatever deals that Russia's got going on. So there's that there, but then China as well. And I got a theory, because I was wondering, why are China not trying to escalate the use of the BRICS, given what's going on with these tariffs? Because it's not, people are losing so much confidence in the dollar. It's not like it couldn't happen.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There isn't a world in which we can't all see
I think part of it is because China actually own a lot of American debt. So it might not necessarily be in the interest of them for them to not the dollar to not retain any power.
Right. And that's where I was going with it, because out of the top 10 countries that owe China into like billions, I think the top amount, I can't remember them in order, but there's like, I think the top country owes them nearly 80 billion, and the least owes 22 or something billion. You could look this up in your spare time, but I say that to say, out of the top 10, there is Africa occupies 6 or 7 of those countries that owe China heavily. So it goes to your point. That is the reason. That's the only reason why I can see why China is not trying to escalate the use of the BRICS, because otherwise, why not? You get what I'm showing you? It just doesn't make... The American dollar to me doesn't make any sense anymore. It's not backed by anything. There's nothing really...
Just a military-industrial complex. And they've already got a bill from Afghanistan and Iraq already. They ain't paid that off yet.
I mean, it's all ethereal though. This is not really... What does it mean? What does it actually mean?
Well, here's a very quick question for you on that part, Index. Like, we're taking all these things into account. What do you think America? What do you think's happening to them? You think we're on the way out? Are we seeing the end of an empire?
Well,
decline of one? Early stages?
So. I believe so. I think it's going to be painful, and this is why I say brace for impact when it comes to African nations and members of the diaspora. We all need to brace for impact, because it's going to affect us all in different ways. We're not on the continent. I can't imagine what it would feel like for me living in London, saying, why is the Prime Minister of Congo entertaining conversations with Donald Trump, swapping resources for defense, when you have to fight the M24 and your members of your citizenship are being killed mercilessly every day. You know what I mean? Randomly bombed and shot at and so forth and so on. I can't imagine what that would be like. But I say this much: this is the brace for impact part. Some more than others are gonna have to grit their teeth to get through this, because we cannot continue to just give away what is ours for the facade of security and money that they just print whenever they feel like it. Because it's not worth anything. You get what I mean? And then we get bent over as a result anyway. You get what I'm showing you? Like, this is not...
Yeah, when they're ready, they'll screw you.
We need to... So, some of these right-wing political commentators are saying the tariffs are necessary, and as much as billions have been wiped off the stock market and so many of the most successful American businessmen have lost out, or businesses have lost out, it's necessary to get through what they need to get through to maintain their status as the world's powerful nation. These are the things that they're saying. To maintain their status as the world's most powerful nation, they need to do this. They need to go through... It's like, swallowing the pill, the big pill that gets stuck in your throat. You know what I mean? It's the same thing that we need to do as a community, I believe. You know what I mean? There's a degree in which we're going to have to swallow that big pill.
If we don't do something this time round, like I said, with the emergence of BRICS and the decline of the empire and the change of the dollar and this emergence of resources within the Caribbean, so we got to do something.
Yeah, and you know what as well? I put a lot of emphasis onto Africa, and I don't necessarily speak much on the Caribbean, and I'll tell you the reasons why. Because in large portions, the way I feel about the Caribbean is that it's like captured land, innit? And we were put there, although we were there before. So let's, for the sake of argument, we were taken from Africa and brought to the Caribbean. So for me, it's like the Caribbean, as much as it's predominantly occupied by black people, it's almost up for grabs for who can compete for it.
Yeah.
You get what I'm showing you? But Africa is ours.
Yeah.
And that's where
you know what I mean? Yeah.
So it's do you have anything, because we got a little time left? Is there anything you want to cover on that?
I mean, on that point, I think that, it just shows you that, like, it's the conversation we've had, and we are obviously enthusiastic about having that conversation. It just goes back to that. I believe clearly that there is a media and government and powerful base that has an interest in Black Caribbean men remaining somewhat ignorant of their potential and, as you discussed, our birthright and our connection to, the most resource-rich place on the planet. And we need to find our place in that. And maybe there's people that are stopping that from happening. So it's important to continue to have these kind of discussions. And I think, I think that it's important because having an understanding of where you come from and the wealth that is associated with that ethnic origin would have a considerable effect on how we viewed ourselves and matured ourselves and gave us these opportunities to realize our potential and our power and our masculine potential as well. So it's an important point. For me, I guess, very quickly, yay, every day, doing something cray.
Right. So this is, for you mentioned about, the way in which we would see ourselves significantly better, probably, if we understood where we were coming from. Somebody who is kind of just swaying in the wind right now with no seatbelt, no support ties, no nothing, is Kanye West. I don't even know where to start, bro. You know what? I was gonna just pick up my phone and actually read the tweet, but you know what? Let me have a look. Give me a summary while I'm looking through it.
So Kanye has released another incendiary tweet on X, formerly known as Twitter, where he has spoken about his struggles with porn addiction and had kind of, I suppose, ranted a bit, but finished.
Shall I read the thing.
Yeah, read the thing, man, because I don't know if I can bring myself to say it verbatim out of nowhere.
Unprovoked.
As much as I'd like to provide context. This is a quote, mind you.
Well, this is straight from the Twitter deck of Ye. This song is called Cousins, about my cousin that's locked in jail for life for killing a pregnant lady a few years after I told him we wouldn't look at dirty magazines together anymore. Perhaps in my self-centered mess, I felt it was my fault that I showed him those dirty magazines when he was 6, and then we acted out what we saw. My dad had Playboy magazines, but the magazines I found in the top drawer of my mum's closet were different. My name is Ye, and I gave fellatio to my cousin till I was 14.
It's interesting that merely weeks ago, he was on another rant where he was using the F word to describe homosexual men, to describe Drake, for example, and a few other people, and has gone from there to this new massive leap where I can't imagine that you would say this for just a reaction, or that you were clout chasing, because I don't imagine it would do you much favors in the community that Ye is from, or the culture that he has been so instrumental in shaping the direction of it. But whoever Kanye West's yes men are, his handlers, whether you are his chef or his personal assistant
or his wife
or his consultant, his therapist, his drug dealer, whatever his masseuse, I don't care if you're the madam that supplies him with the sex workers. I think someone has to provide this man with some therapy. At the very least, he needs to be away from social media, and he needs to be able to recenter or recalibrate himself, because as much as I have enjoyed some of Kanye's outbursts, been inspired by them, entertained by them, I think it's clear that this is not a well person.
Can I offer a different perspective?
Absolutely.
Now, I am not at all saying that I agree with what he's done.
I definitely know you wouldn't.
But I'm going to say this, right? It raises, for me, some interesting conversations that I feel like we need to be having within our community. Because, like you said earlier on, you can't have just the bread, you gotta eat the crust as well. You get me? And I feel like this is part and parcel of what's happening, not just within Kanye's life, but almost reflective in the community, that we like things that we don't talk about. You get me? One of which he's talking about acting out sexual things that he saw in porn magazines with his cousin, right? At a young age. Now, for the most part, or for a large part, there's many of people within our community that are doing these things or engaged in these sort of things, acts as younger children that have been abused. I feel like that is part and parcel of this conversation.
Yeah.
I also feel like, yes, there is a degree of therapy that he needs. But I'm gonna say this, and this is gonna sound how it sounds, but I'm just gonna give I'm gonna say it and I'll give you some context as well. When I was younger, my mum had some friends. Her friends, some of them had daughters, and when they'd come around to my house, sometimes you would have a little, you know what I mean, little kiss, or you know what I mean, whatever, as kids, right? Now I'm not saying that's right to do, but what I am saying is, he's also, in my mind, talking about some of the things that some of us go through as kids, but never ever talk about.
Mm-hmm.
Now, whether that's right or wrong, I'm not saying that's right or wrong. I'm just saying that it's a conversation. I'm not leaned into that space enough to say where that comes from, or whether or not that should. There's a long-term effect on us as human beings growing up and trying to just function as normal adults. But I would say definitely in terms of like the abuse side of things, this feels to me like if I was younger and less experienced and less mature, I probably would have just said, them man there are nasty. Bun Kanye, this is some joke thing.
Yeah.
You get what I'm showing you? But as a older man now, I can understand that it sounds like an element of abuse that's happened here, and we should be looking into that, not for the benefit, well, yeah, for the benefit too of Kanye, but also for the benefit of our community at large. You get what I'm saying? To circumvent these issues because these things happen.
They happen very, very often. I think that, like, just continuing from what you're saying, I'm not sure if it's abuse in the classic sense that there may have been an older person that was overseeing like the sexual contact between these two parties, but obviously young children having access to adult materials like pornography can have this kind of effect. And so the abuse is more like the exposure that they had to it and the fact that, you know, there was no way to explain that kind of thing and they saw something. And, you know, there are lots of children who are exposed to pornography at a very young age before they're able to process what it is and even an understanding of their own bodies. And in many cases, body exploration that could happen mutually between kids, it's not really that sexually focused. It might just be them trying to emulate stuff they've seen in media. But there can be lines that can be crossed. And if they're not discussed or, you know, explained and as to why they're wrong, then they will begin to
and that's the reason
abuse.
That's the reason why I bring up my experience, because I feel like I looking back, I don't even know why I just thought that that's what, and it was a lot of trying to put it politely, but I'm just gonna say it, dry humping involved. You know what I mean? Because you just see certain things on TV and you think, oh, that's what adults do, and it's more the fascination of doing that than anything else. But I feel like it is an important conversation to have because I feel like adults forget what they used to do as children.
Oh yeah.
And almost don't look for it. And especially in this hypersexual world that we now live in,
That's
where
right now.
kids have access to porn, bless you, brother, where kids have access to porn at the touch of a button.
It's thrust upon them whether they want it or not, to lack of it. So, yeah.
I shouldn't laugh, but
I know, but yeah. The way you can get down to seeing adult content on social media as a kid, you can find yourself open up to a whole new world with 4 movements of your thumb that you're not ready for. And it can be a serious problem. It is a serious problem already in the West. And it's mashed up a whole generation.
That's it.
So,
you get me? So I feel like, you know, I mean, to comment about where Kanye is now, I mean, a lot of the times I welcome his rants because I just feel like it's disruptive enough to have a message in it that is helpful for our community. This one, even so, I still feel like there's a message in it, but it makes me worry about where he's at.
There's a lot of young and black men who have experienced sexual trauma who do not discuss it, have tried to process it, and have gone on to develop pathology of behaviors that are massively destructive that they don't even know is wrong. This is all connected.
Yeah.
The idea that you have to prove your masculinity by the amount of girl you can fuck,
a
lot of the time stems from men who have had their masculinity compromised due to sexual trauma at a very young age. So the whole part is connected to the conversation.
Yeah. It's interesting you say that because you're talking about it from that perspective. You're talking about masculinity or trying to attain to masculinity from a perspective of being compromised or having your manhood compromised. But then there's also, and I feel like it's the school of thought that I came from in trying to assert your masculinity by by it wasn't sexual trauma. It was more, that's what men are supposed to do.
Yeah.
You get what I'm showing you? And I still believe to a degree, like, men are supposed to do the chasing and men are supposed to assert themselves. But to collect women as trophies as a way to assert your masculinity there's a mental flaw in your thinking that comes from maybe trauma, but in a different way. So you have like we've got two separate things that we're talking about there. You know what I mean? But I do worry about where Kanye is, because yeah, man, this one was yeah. I'm finding it hard to give him the grace that I would normally give him.
We was last time, because last time we were like, you know, Kanye don't really shock us no more. You know, he does these things and ain't that shocking, innit? But it's like, it's yay. But today, my jaw said, okay,
more than
because before a while we were like these are just Kanye antics, and they don't really blow us away. But today I was like,
like when I
see,
yeah. So anyway, because we're short of time, let's wrap up, bro. Because I'm still shocked at it. You know, to be fair,
of course,
I'm still shocked at it.
Of course,
it's mad.
It is. It's mad. It's mad, and how he's got there. But in many ways, it explains a lot more about, you know, the previous conversations we've had about him, and it goes back to, like I said, do we have these systems of fraternity and systems of paternity where a man like Ye can speak to an older man who can explain the situation and explain what the healing or process is, or talk to him about the walking through his identity.
And not just traditional therapy. I feel
not
like
at all. Like,
because of our family dynamics and the way that our family dynamics have suffered this degradation, we don't have the natural therapist that we need, because it's all good us going and paying for a therapist to come and say, oh, and unpack our whole life and then help us to put it back together and diagnose some sort of like audible pill. The reality is, bro, if you've been through it, if I've been through it and I'm your elder, that's the best therapy you need. You get what I mean? And coming from within our community, it is so much more easily digestible. But we just, like you said, we don't have that fraternity.
We don't have that.
You get me? And so, I mean, I'm going to just summarize by saying this.
We used to have that.
Yes.
That's why psychiatric help, we didn't need it as much as a community, because we had elders, and you'd be surrounded by elders that would provide you with nurturing, and they'd be able to provide you with the wisdom of experience. And they would also, your therapy would come with genuine emotional concern for your well-being.
Yeah.
And that's what's lacking as a community as a whole.
Yeah. I'll say this again. Anyone who's like the leaders, I'm talking to the leaders really of our community. If you're serious about what we're doing or what we need to be doing, let's connect, man. I'll leave Mandem in particular with this word, maturity. If you want our women are they're venting their frustration online, talking about black men not stepping up. You get what I'm showing you? If we want more respect, we need to be doing more. So let's mature, create spaces for the youngest to come into and like stay out of their way, but be a space of therapy for them. You know what I mean? And yeah, we just need to raise that. There's stuff coming down the pipeline that's going to affect us in our communities. We need to be ready for it. So brace for impact. With that all said, find us on MYB_pod UK on all socials. Find Dane Baptiste.
Find me on all socials. Look up Dane Baptiste and check out the website for more listings and gigs when I'm doing a thing live. And keep supporting the podcast.
Yeah, man. Respect and love. You know what I mean? And to our community, yeah, man, we do this for you guys, really. You get what I'm showing you? This is not, this costs money. You know what I mean? We do it for you, like on a real thing, you get me? So, yeah, man, enough love.